Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another average review, and I'm excited today because we're going to be reviewing a brand new figure. This just got listed on the Target website today, and it's also a figure of one of my personal favorite DC characters, the McFarlane DC Multiverse Target exclusive Wildcat. Now let's get the packaging out of the way because the packaging is never that exciting. We've got Wildcat's name down here, the DC Multiverse logo, obviously the big window box where you can see the figure inside, and this little gold label sticker on the packaging to announce this is an exclusive figure. On the side, we see Wildcat's name again, and the branding that this is from JSA, of course standing for the Justice Society of America. And on the back, we have this kind of weird-looking artwork that I'm pretty sure is a traced image of the Wildcat figure. I would have preferred if they used a pre-existing Wildcat art from the comics, like, for example, this piece right here. This is just a personal favorite piece of Wildcat art of mine, but, whatever. It's on the box, and I'm just gonna throw this out anyways. So let's take a look at the figure inside. Alright, getting Wildcat out of the box, and honestly, I'm pretty satisfied. It's on a fairly standard, smooth body buck for the most part. I actually don't know what body mold specifically it is, but it's definitely Reeves. That I know. It's cast in a fairly dark blue, which I know some people probably would have preferred it being black, including me, but I'm still satisfied with, this dark blue look. And even better, they have a lot of painted detail of some lighter blue shading throughout, I'd say, from the thighs up, around the shoulders, the chest, and, well, of course, the thighs, like I mentioned. There isn't really any on the back, but, I'm fine with it just being on this specific area of the front anyways. And what I'm sure is new are, well, these wrapped wrists, which look really nice. They even have some extra painted detail that might just be, blood, or, just like dirt in the bandages, because they're probably dirty bandages because he's been in a lot of fights. And another thing I'm sure is new is this head sculpt. Now, I do like this head sculpt. It's a great Wildcat head sculpt, but I do kind of wish the white here on the snout of the mask was a bit more, pronounced, more white. And also, I feel like there's just not enough room for his nose in there. I know these are just kind of nitpicks, but like I said, Wildcat is a personal favorite character of mine, and since this is probably going to be the only figure we're going to get of him in the DC Multiverse line, although I would like for that to not be true, I'm gonna give some minor critiques. But hey, I'm still really satisfied with how he looks. He looks, strong and muscular like Ted Grant should. I feel like maybe the biceps and forearms could be a little larger, but they still look nice. And the head sculpt, pretty good for a younger Wildcat, which I feel like that's what McFarlane has been doing with their JSA members. They're not the old, grandpa versions. They're a bit younger, and you know what? I'm okay with that. But hey, let's go on from the sculpting and paintwork on this guy to his articulation. Now, Ted Grant, aka Wildcat, is a boxer, so he needs to get into some pretty dynamic fighting poses. So let's see how he does. His head's on a dumbbell joint, so he gets some pretty good up and some alright down. Spin all the way around and tilt side to side for when he needs to avoid a punch straight to the jaw. His shoulders have a rotator cuff with a very, very dynamic range, and he's got shoulders that can spin around and swivel. They get really high up thanks to that rotator cuff too, which is pretty nice. He's got a bicep swivel, which gives you 360 degrees of turning right there, and double jointed elbows with a pretty perfect bend, and that's really nice. Now, his bandaged fists are on the McFarlane style wrists, which swivel at the base of the forearm and the base of the hand, and hinge forward and back, but by turning both, you can either get it to move up and down, or once again, forward and back. Really, really nice there. He's got a diaphragm joint and a ball-jointed waist. They, unfortunately, like most McFarlane figures, don't get much hunched forward, which is a bit of a shame since, I'd want to pose Ted Grant or, in some really crouchy fighting poses. But he gets some pretty good arch back, which is always nice. He also gets tilt side to side and twist. Now he's got the McFarlane style hips that kick forward this far, which is pretty good. And they split this far, which is really nice. And of course they twist, which once again, I don't think anyone ever uses. But what everyone uses, pretty much. Those nice double jointed knees, which get a pretty alright bend. His feet are the standard McFarlane feet articulation. They swivel at the ankle, hinge back and forward, pivot side to side, and toe articulation. So, pretty good in every joint except the hunch forward, which is a little disappointing. Moving on to fellow figure comparisons, and we gotta start out with the standard male and female comparisons in these reviews. The Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. And just like most McFarlane DC reviews, they're mostly gonna be absent from this since, they're Marvel figures, for one, so, they aren't really relevant to a DC figure review, and they're in 6-inch scale as opposed to the DC Multiverse 7-inch scale. But I'd also like to bring out the comic and movie versions of Wolverine, since I think there's a fair bit of similarities between James Howlett and Ted Grant. If you're wondering which Wolverines specifically these are, it's the House of X brown suit, and of course, the Deadpool 3 comic-accurate Wolverine. But hey, let's get on to the DC comparisons, and we gotta start out with the DC character Ted might be most associated with, Batman. Specifically, the first appearance and Nightfall versions of Batman. I specifically chose first appearance Batman since he's very appropriate for the Justice Society, in the 1940s that Ted was a part of, and also Nightfall Batman since that body mold gets used a lot for Batman now, and I think Nightfall is the better fit with Ted height-wise. Going to the other two members of the DC Trinity, we have to start out with Wonder Woman, specifically the Last Night on Earth version, since for now, it's the only DC Multiverse Wonder Woman I have. But I'm hoping to change that when that leaked Golden Age Wonder Woman from the Page Punchers line releases, which would fit in the Justice Society display, but I'm saving her for the Justice League display. And, of course, we gotta bring out the two main versions of the Man of Steel, Superman. On the left is the Atomic Skull 2-pack version, and on the right is the Hush Superman version. Now, the Hush one is the one I personally use as my Earth 2 Justice Society Superman, so this Wildcat right here is going to be displayed right next to this big blue. But of course, we gotta bring out the two other super well-known Justice Society members, Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, and Jay Garrick, the Flash. I am really happy with how all these JSA members came out, although I do wish Jay was a little shorter since he kinda towers over both of these guys. Admittedly though, the DC Direct first appearance Jay Garrick Flash kinda has the opposite problem. Speaking of figures in my JSA display that are just plain too short for their DC Multiverse contemporaries, I'm bringing out the Mattel DC Universe Classics Hourman and Mattel DC Total Heroes Hawkman. Yeah, they're too short for McFarlane figures, which make up most of that display, but they're some of the only Justice Society members I have, so it'll have to do. I'd also like to bring out the McFarlane Digital Longbow Hunter's Green Arrow. Because of that one episode in Justice League Unlimited featuring both of these guys and another character called the Cat and the Canary, and also to say McFarlane please make a classic comic book Black Canary figure. See, she is important to so many major DC teams. The Justice League, the Justice Society, the Birds of Prey. And she's important to so many individual characters like Green Arrow and Wildcat. Also, it'd finish off the trinity of main heroes that appeared in that Justice League Unlimited episode, The Cat and the Canary. If you can't tell, I really like that episode. But hey, as is tradition, and I know an old guy like Ted loves traditions, here's the McFarlane DC Multiverse JSA Wildcat with Hitmonkey and Goliath. Now, moving on to accessories, and that's unfortunately the most disappointing part of this figure, because he doesn't come with any character-specific accessories. He only comes with a standard figure stand, which I do appreciate. You know, figure stands are always useful, and especially those McFarlane ones, and the trading card with a buyout, and that's actually pretty useful for a slightly more obscure character like Ted Grant, who a lot more people don't know about in comparison to the DC heavy hitters. In fact, just because, you know, probably a lot of people clicking on this video don't know a whole lot about Wildcat, I'll actually read the trading card out. In 1941, boxer Ted Grant, trademark, was framed for murder and on the run when a comic book inspired him to don a costume and track down the real killer. As Wildcat, trademark, Ted cleared his name and, loving the double life, kept going, specializing in sports-related crimes. He often helped his manager, Stretch Skinner, trademark, with the detective agency he ran as a sideline. That's pretty much just a truncated summary of Wildcat's early stories in the golden age of comics, which I do appreciate. I love, and I mean love, slightly obscure golden age superheroes from Marvel and DC, and Ted Grant really stands out to me as one of the top dogs, especially with a lot of his stories in the modern age. So yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm pretty sentimental about characters in the Justice Society, and especially Wildcat, which does fit since the Justice Society are a pretty sentimental team. And hey, my love of Wildcat as a character and the overall pretty good execution of this figure do definitely make me love it a whole lot, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its downsides. The head sculpt could be a little better around the snout area. See the sort of flat face and overall lack of definition around the white areas of the mask, and also the lack of hunch forward or any accessories are kind of a buzzkill. Still though, at only $20, this guy is pretty decent for any fan of Wildcat, who for the most part are kinda starving in the action figure department. I mean, there was one from DC Direct and two versions of Wildcat in Mattel's DC Universe Classics, one being a similar shade of blue to this figure, and another being a variant in his black color scheme. Unfortunately, I have neither of those, but I think this guy might be one of the overall best, mainly in terms of the articulation with his double knees and elbows. So, factoring in the good and the bad of this guy, I'm gonna give the McFarlane DC Multiverse Target exclusive JSA Wildcat an 8 out of 10. He could definitely be better, but hey, I'm mostly just glad we actually got Wildcat in the line. And I'm also really glad that I was able to get him today, the exact day he released. I don't think that's ever happened to me with pretty much any action figure, well, ever. I usually end up picking them up a few weeks or months after they release. Heck, let alone years with figures that haven't been on shelves in a while. So this is a fairly nice change of pace. And hey, since we got Wildcat, here's hoping we get other Justice Society members. Like, Ted's 5'1" friend, the Golden Age Atom, Al Pratt. Or modern members like Stargirl and her uncle Pat Dugan, Stripe. Although, hey, to close out the video, here's Ted in the now slightly redone JSA mini display. If you've made it this far into the video, well, have a great day, 'cause you deserve it. Bye-bye.